The laughter started softly, like a few stones rolling down a hill, then grew louder until it filled the bright daytime lecture hall. Sunlight poured through tall windows, glinting off whiteboards and polished desks, as Professor Aldrich Boone stood at the front with a thin smile that carried more pride than warmth. At the back of the room sat Kellen Brooks, a quiet black student with worn notebooks, squared shoulders, and eyes that had learned to stay lowered. In that moment, no one noticed how his fingers tightened around his pen, or how his breath slowed, as the professor wrote an equation so long and complex it looked more like a challenge than a lesson. The kind of equation meant not to be solved, but to make a point. A cruel one. Before the story goes any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of human potential, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Dreams Dairy. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them. Professor Boone had built his reputation on brilliance and intimidation. He taught advanced mathematics at a prestigious university, and his classes were known as filters rather than classrooms. Students whispered that if you survived his course, you could survive anything. When Kellen transferred mid-semester on a scholarship few believed he deserved, Boone noticed him immediately, not for his work, but for his silence and his second-hand clothes. The professor's assumptions grew quietly, fed by years of unchecked bias and the comfort of authority. When Boone announced that the next equation was purely theoretical and far beyond this class, his eyes flicked toward Kellen just long enough to sting. Kellen's journey to that sunlit classroom had not been easy. He grew up in a small apartment above a laundromat, where the hum of washing machines blended with numbers in his head. While other kids escaped into games, Kellen escaped into patterns, teaching himself algebra from discarded textbooks and solving puzzles by the light of a cracked window. His mother worked double shifts, believing fiercely in education even when the world offered little proof it would return the favor. Kellen learned early that talent did not protect you from doubt, and silence was often safer than speaking. The equation on the board stretched across 3 panels, symbols layered with cruel elegance. Boone turned his back, confident no one would even attempt it. The room buzzed with confusion, students shaking their heads, some smirking, others already defeated. Kellen stared at the problem, not with fear, but with recognition. His mind began to move, not fast, but deep, tracing connections, peeling layers, seeing structure where others saw chaos. He did not raise his hand. He did not announce himself. He simply began to write. Minutes passed. Boone paced, enjoying the discomfort he had created. When he finally glanced toward the back, he froze. Kellen's page was filled edge to edge, neat lines of logic flowing with purpose. A flicker of irritation crossed the professor's face, followed by disbelief. This was not what the moment was supposed to be. Boone walked closer, sunlight catching the tension in his jaw. Students leaned forward, sensing something shifting in the air. As Boone reached Kellen's desk, the room fell silent. The professor scanned the work, expecting errors, shortcuts, guesses. Instead, he found precision. Each step followed the last with undeniable clarity. The equation had been dismantled, understood, and rebuilt into a solution that was not just correct, but elegant. Boone's confidence cracked under the weight of evidence. The impossible had been made possible, not loudly, not arrogantly, but quietly, in the back row. Kellen looked up then, meeting Boone's eyes for the first time. There was no triumph there, only exhaustion and a calm resolve forged by years of being underestimated. The professor straightened, suddenly aware of every student watching, of the bright daylight that now felt unforgiving. In that moment, Boone saw not a stereotype, not a transfer student, but a mind sharper than his own ego. Regret crept in, slow and heavy. The rest of the class passed in stunned quiet. Word spread quickly through the department, then across campus. Kellen's name began to circulate, attached to phrases like prodigy and genius, but those words felt too small for the weight he carried. Boone, for his part, could not escape the moment. It replayed in his thoughts, forcing him to confront the harm of his assumptions. He began to change, not overnight, but deliberately, adjusting his methods, his tone, his expectations. It was a reckoning brought on by daylight truth. Kellen's life did not transform into a fairy tale. Recognition did not erase struggle. But doors opened. Mentors appeared. His confidence grew, not because he had proven others wrong, but because he had finally been seen. He continued to sit near the back, still quiet, still focused, letting his work speak in a world that too often refused to listen. As the semester ended, the lecture hall looked the same, flooded with sunlight, desks in perfect rows. But something fundamental had shifted. A professor had learned humility. A student had claimed his space. And everyone who witnessed it carried a lesson far greater than mathematics, about prejudice, about potential, about the cost of underestimating someone simply because they do not fit your expectations. If this story stirred something inside you, if it reminded you of your own hidden strengths or the power of being truly seen, please take a moment now to like, comment, and share this video. Your engagement helps these stories travel further than silence ever could. And before this story ends, we have a special request for you: comment your thoughts below, because your voice matters here. The brightest transformations do not always happen under spotlights. Sometimes they unfold quietly, in the middle of an ordinary day, when truth is written clearly on a page and no amount of laughter can erase it.